speak right into the mic so we can give your name and address, please.
Okay, I did write it on the sheet. I don't know if you still need it.
Yes, please.
Okay, it's 177 4th Street, Troy. And I do work at 33 Central Avenue in Albany, Social Justice Center. So I am here for a few different reasons tonight. One being that I am sick and sad and disgusted that another life was lost at the hands of the Albany Police Department last week. And that's why I'm here with a few people, and that's why a few people got together last week on Friday to gather and give us an opportunity to express that and call for, disarming the police from, at minimum, tasers, which seem to be almost too new or too confusing to use properly, or perhaps you shouldn't be shooting people with 50,000 volts under any circumstances, which I think is more accurate. But I'm here specifically because that incident is a reflection of a lot of other incidents that don't maybe end in fatality, but that are incidents of police violence in the city of Albany. I have witnessed just personally, sort of just random acts of violence. One day I was riding the bus, and 3 cops came on the bus and beat a guy up in front of 30 people. And when we tried to de-escalate the situation, we got asked if we wanted to get off the bus, if we wanted to join him in his circumstances. So I think that requires, a moment to step back and wonder exactly whether or not these officers on the ground are hearing what is being said by some of the command staff that I think we all know, and we've heard a lot of good things out of their mouths, that they acknowledge that there's racism among their officers in the force. They acknowledge that racism is a social problem that is going to be reflected in the folks that they hire. But their ability to actually manage that on the ground seems to be either limited or impossible. And that has resulted in trauma in the community of Albany, right? Like that's resulted in trauma on people who aren't even a part of an incident, as well as folks whose entire lives get transformed because they have a negative incident or interaction with a cop in Albany. And to me, that requires a huge moment of taking a step back and looking at what other options we have as a city to keep ourselves safe, other than having folks carrying guns, tasers, and billy clubs around who are meant to, maintain law and order. When really it seems that when they enter a situation, that situation becomes unsafe. It becomes more dangerous, whether that is a person walking down the street being stopped and frisked, whether that's a person in their car being stopped and then being convinced that they have to consent to search after search after search that ultimately leads to tragically often body searches of people on the sides of roads in Albany, of young people, 18, 19-year-old people. And those kids don't know where they would go or who they would speak to. And even if they did speak to someone, what would that result in for them concretely? Would it undo the trauma that they experienced? Certainly not. Would it even result in a reprimand? Unlikely. But I think we've seen from the folks who are on the Albany Police Department who have been involved in fatalities, those people are still on the Albany Police Force. Those people were not indicted for anything that they were involved in. They were not punished for that behavior, nor would punishment really serve any purpose in that case, because that person's life is still lost. So I think there's an opportunity here for the city of Albany and the people of Albany to reflect on what they see as safety and to reflect on the $54 million that Albany is spending on the police department every year, and where could resources like that go to rejuvenate the city? Where could they go to rejuvenate communities, to offer jobs, to offer housing redevelopment, to offer any number of fantastic things that we could have as a city, instead of having a uniformed gang of folks who have the authority to end lives, particularly of Black and brown people in the city of Albany, who certainly have the authority to do damage to them on a daily basis. So that's really sort of the core of what I'm here to talk about, and what I hope that we can engage in a future conversation about, and that we will be back to continue this conversation about what sorts of changes are possible in Albany and how we can think about reallocating resources in a way that really serves the people who live here, instead of offering tons of resources to folks who, A, don't live in the city of Albany, which is a sort of a side concern, but still a concern, but also where else could that money be going? And how else could we be serving people? And how else could we be offering support for folks with mental illness instead of interactions that result in their death or their injury? So that's all I really have to say. And we were able to